Okay, okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. My name's Andrea Stanislav, and I am an artist based in New York City currently. I am very fortunate to have worked at the Museum of Cosmonautics in Moscow and their amazing staff over the last few years. And I first would like to thank them for the opportunity to do the research, to visit, to help me navigate, and to also facilitate some incredible performances that we did in collaboration. And I will show some of those this evening. And I just want to say I could not have done it without the Museum of Cosmonautics. So thank you to all of the wonderful and lovely staff there. I grew up in the United States, and I grew up in a time, I would say, in the shadow of the space race. And very much right after NASA's Apollo 11 program, I'm actually born in 1968. In 69, the US had the first man to walk on the moon, Neil Armstrong. And I really grew up in a culture that celebrated space. And I attribute that to my early interest in space as a child. I was very obsessed with books about space exploration and planets, and really loved and sponged up science fiction books and films. So this is a slide of some of the stories and films that were quite influential to me when I was younger, even to a teenager, and now also as an adult. I'll keep talking. Okay. The Sentinel, Arthur C. Clarke, I've done a number of works that directly reference that. I'd say three films that were incredibly influential to me, and I still look to, is Stanislav Lem's book, Solaris, and then the Tarkovsky film, and also Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey, which I also reference in my artwork, and I have done entire exhibitions as homage to both of these films. Silent Running is another science fiction novel that I think someone should do a remake of. Very interesting, about a space station that's on Earth, and the US government decides to stop funding the last specimens of animal and plant life on Earth. It's called The Valley Forge. I highly recommend it. So going on to A Space Odyssey, this last scene, the Star Child scene in 2001: A Space Odyssey, is, again, a moment in film, a scene from a film that I've also referenced in my artwork. And I've done quite a bit of research within this film as well. Going back to the 1980s, growing up in the United States, at some point in the very early 80s, I saw, I think it was in a National Geographic magazine possibly, an image of this monument. And it really changed my life. I wanted to see this monument, the monument to the conquerors of space that exists above the Museum of Cosmonautics. And it was sort of a lifelong dream to actually see this sculpture. And I became a sculptor by trade in the United States, and was lucky. We'll go into the performance soon. But going back to the 1980s, I was in high school at this point, and another event happened in the US history of space exploration that really affected me. And this was the explosion of the Challenger space shuttle with Christy McCullough, who was a teacher that was on board. And the reason why I think this affected me so much is also because my gym instructor, one of my teachers in my high school, was actually the first, we'll say, loser or runner-up. She trained to be on this mission. And she didn't get the last place, and Christy did. And so we watched this live in class. I remember this as a teenager. And my teacher broke down crying. It was quite emotional. And I think that was the beginning of the end, to some extent, for Americans to really celebrate space at this point. And there was then defunding with the space shuttle program that lasted actually up until 2011, but continued to be defunded. And these were the images that we saw on live TV. This kind of explosion is also referenced in my artwork in different ways. But again, to me, this also symbolizes a kind of ender and explosion of American exceptionalism, American dream, and it's the end of the apogee, I would say, of the space race. And the apogee would have been 1969 with Neil Armstrong walking on the moon. As I became more familiar with Russian culture, and I would say that I grew up reading Russian novels and am quite informed as a visual artist by the films of Andrei Tarkovsky, which I watched from a child, and still it was really the visual information that I absorbed probably to some extent the most as a visual artist. I watched film, and I also am quite informed by film. But Tarkovsky was very important, so Solaris was also very important. And starting to work in Russia in 2013 as an artist in the Moscow Biennial and on other public projects, I started to explore different, I would say, trains of thought in Russian thought. And one that I came across is Russian cosmism, which for me really I started to respond to it in a way that it linked my work to certain theories and philosophies. So Fedorov, Nikolai Fedorov we could think of him as the father of Russian cosmism. It has a kind of Christian religious thought, but mixed with this space exploration and science. So it's this combination of, I would say, spiritual thinking and science, space exploration, which I found quite interesting. And I started to look for threads of this within science fiction novels. And of course, there's quite a few. This is just an image I really love, entitled "In Praise of Humanity." And this is an early image of a spaceship. So again, I also, growing up in the United States, I listened to Parliament, and we had the mothership. So I was always interested in pop culture references to space as well. But I thought that this was a really sort of incredible drawing of a spaceship. And I'll go over a few other films that I think everyone should watch. And I'll say Ani Ara, which is, I think, a 2019 Swedish science fiction film I highly recommend, in that lineage of 2001: A Space Odyssey, Solaris, and Ani Ara is, I would say, kind of the third film within that theme of space exploration and what humans become. And this is Tsiolkovsky, the science fiction work in dreams of the Earth and the sky and the effects of universal gravitation. So I also looked quite a bit, of course, at his thinking, and within the museum, archives and collections. It was quite informative, and again, to be able to see the work, artifacts firsthand was really life-changing, and for my work as well. Also, as an artist, I've been very interested in sort of the blackness which starts with Malevich. And this is an image from 1915. And the first black square was actually seen on a stage set design that Malevich created called Victory for the Sun, which also has a kind of cosmism, I would say, connection in terms of its themes. But even in contemporary art right now, there are as many conversations about blackness, the meaning of blackness, this connection to space, this connection to an abyss, this connection to the future, a world within. There's many ways to think about this. And it's interesting that it does go straight back to 1912, 1915 with the supremacist movement in Russia. So contemporary art started in Russia in the 19-teens with Malevich and his cohort. Another group that I found quite interesting about 5 years ago, and this is sort of a precursor, we would say, to the space program, but the Night Witches, which were, they were a group of fighter pilots, women, that had a very interesting innate skill that where they could fly these planes pretty much at night without any lights on. So there was a skill set, and their precision was also quite remarkable in terms of their ability to bomb. So they were in the Soviet Air Forces, and this started to, I would say, lead my interest into the history of females in space. And of course, as we know with the cosmonauts, Valentina Tereshkova was the first woman in space. And through the museum and additional research, I started to look at and then acknowledge in my artwork females in space, a kind of homage to them in space and what their achievements were. And we also have on the right, we have one of the capsules, which is Balashova design, and we will get into that. And here are a few other female cosmonauts and astronauts. So the first woman in space, first woman to fly in space, and so we have. And so it's interesting when you look through the numbers, and we have more women in space now than so we're catching up. And then of course Galina Balashova, who I have been quite interested in the last 2 years, an architect and an interior designer, really the architect of an aesthetician of the Soviet space program. And the interesting thing for me about her work, and I'm in touch with her. I'm doing an interview with her currently. Was that in the Soviet space program, the different kinds of capsules, the Suez capsules, the Mir, they had a softness to them. There was a kind of feminine. There was this sense of home, and the color scheme was not battleship grays. Like the American space program, which was white and gray and very, very stark. There were the colors of Earth. There was a color palette. And she also talks about within her designs that she wanted the cosmonauts to be able to orient themselves in space based on a color scheme of the interior. So for instance, giving them a kind of, I would say a kind of sense or comfort of that there is a bottom and there is a top. There's gravity. There is no gravity, but there's the floors are gold, and the ceilings are blue, and then the walls are green. So it was to give you this sense of Earth. I think a remembrance for Earth. And the other interesting thing with her designs is that she always included images of Earth in these designs, either through small landscape paintings. Sometimes they were her own landscape paintings that were based on memories of her childhood, different lakes and ponds that she went to, flowers. And these are actually some of her drawings. I also started to think about how her designs were possibly sort of echoed in science fiction. And I've been very haunted by the Solaris images of, we have the Bruegel paintings in the background. And this is a question I'm going to ask of her, but also if Tarkovsky was still alive, I would ask him what he was looking at in terms of this. So that's to be continued. But this is a beautiful scene from Solaris, this scene, which it's kind of a motif of floating levitation and ecstasy, and we have with Chris and sort of the apparition of his ex-wife are floating within the space, and you see the Bruegel paintings around them. So with the Museum of Cosmonautics, there have been 3 performances that we have realized. The first was called Reflect Space, and this was realized during Space Week in and around the grounds of the museum. And the performance it entails 2 individuals. Sometimes I perform it with my creative partner, Dean. Sometimes other performers have performed this. And we take, it's this idea of taking the sculpture, which is the garment with these handmade mirrored pin buttons, and we give the mirrors away to the audience, the participants, in trade for the answer to a question. And in this performance, the question was, would you move to Mars? And that's an interest. Would you at this point? So it's becoming more possible every day. And the sculpture gets dispersed to the public, and then we are collecting your photos, the public's photos, and then the buttons are then made into portraits. And then we are also collecting the audio memories. And this work then it can be exhibited afterwards with the audio accompanied this, and then the garments are covered with the photographs, kind of the black and white photographs of everyone that we collaborated with and traded ideas. A trade of sculpture and a trade for your answer if you would move to Mars. And it was, I would say most people actually said they would in some way. A few people were absolutely no. And also I just want to say that the work started, and this was a wonderful beginning to the piece, at Sergei Korolev's house, which is also part of the museum, a few blocks away, where we had a tea, and we went with particular wonderful individuals that are part of, I would say, the museum's extended family. And we have a few. We have Alexander Levikin. We have Sergei Zlatov, the musician, and we also have Tom Leary, who he was actually the cultural attaché, and he was a U.S. consul general in the past. And so interacting with individuals in the museum, you get your button, and then the buttons then are made into these photographic buttons that are then put back on the costumes and displayed. So to move forward to the next project, this was the Parade of the Planets, and this was performed in St. Petersburg with the help of the museum and ITMO University as well. And we going to play video. Okay, so we'll keep going. So this was performed in St. Petersburg, and the concept behind this was a parade, I'd say a traditional parade that moves through the streets of St. Petersburg, but then changes as we go to the plazas. And this was with Workstage Dance Company, and Vitaly Kim is the choreographer and director. And then the dancers broke off in the different plashades and open spaces to sort of disrupt and deconstruct the parade. It was a kind of deconstruction parade, and then come back together on certain streets to continue. And we also worked with the new like brass orchestra with this, and it was a great success. We had some elderly citizens, as women that were dancing, and the music was arranged by the brass group, and we were taking traditional Soviet songs that had to do with space, Yuri Gagarin, and then the marching band played these traditional sounds, but with a new arrangement for brass. And then we ended at the new planetarium in St. Petersburg, and these wonderful flags were created at the Museum of Cosmonautics. So we have the planets, and then we have a flag representing ITMO University as well. And then the second part of this, I'd say the second parade then took place, and this was a great, I'd say a very personal project for me, and it was amazing to be invited for the 55th anniversary of the monument to the conquerors of space. Again, having this sort of lifelong fascination with this structure. These are a few images here. And so we worked around the museum grounds. We marched and we danced, and we have a few videos here too. Beautiful. It was, I couldn't think of a better location. And let's see. So this is with a different brass group from Moscow associated with the Bolshoi Theater. It's the Bolshoi's brass section. And again, this was very much about this sort of occupying space through dance. And then on the backs of the capes, we have a kind of, it's a screen printed image of the monument. Okay, let me go back here. Just 1 minute. This is the finale. Okay, and I think one more. I think they had four or five songs. So I'm going to move on to gallery work that I also do. So my practice is a hybrid practice that is realized through sculpture, through video work, and through gallery work with interior sculptures and collage. The act of collage is something that I regard as a continuation of my sculptural practice. And this past spring, it was a little closed due to COVID. And we actually we're closing this exhibition today, so auspicious timing. This was off space, and this was in Tel Aviv, and this is with the curator Maria Witz, and it was a very interesting exhibition that had to do with I'd say investigation and a conversation about individuals in space that are maybe not as well represented, looking at Jewish cosmonauts and astronauts, also Black astronauts and women in space. So we were looking at these kinds of diverse groups, and the artwork was very much sort of reflecting that in through videos, through text pieces, through collage works. And within that, for this exhibition, I created a series of collage works that I continue to do, and I'll show you more of these. And within these images, you have references to Galina Balashovan's work, for instance. The pink and green area on the bottom is actually an architect's design that is informed by her work. You see the Bruegel paintings upside down. You see female cosmonauts within the work too. There's different like Suez capsules that are cut out. And the artwork of Galina Balashova, so the flowers and so forth. There was also a new video work that I created called Nostalgia for Earth, which featured Balashova's interiors that were filmed in the Museum of Cosmonautics. And the ability to film within these capsules was really integral to the project. So it was very important to have access. Other collages here. So they're made on black velvet. There's a black velvet back, and then I manipulate the photographs in Photoshop. I change the color, And it's a combination of this kind of black velvet material and then refractive films and glitter papers, and then the photographs that I'm both cutting out, sourcing, and then manipulating in Photoshop. But they're all hand cut. So this act of sort of the hand within the artwork is very important to me within these works. This is another piece. I'm also referencing some of my own previous artworks in these kinds of cubes that are turned upside down. And the cube with the white dove on it it's also a homage to Yuri Gagarin and the famous photographs of him with the doves, different space stations. Other more here. And I'm going to show a little bit of this video. It's 12 minutes long, so I'm not going to show the entire thing, but we'll go for it. So this is Zero Gravity, a nostalgia for Earth. And there's a few pop songs. It starts with a conspiracy theory, I would say. It's a recording of a female astronaut who supposedly crashed to Earth, or a cosmonaut, excuse me, before their birth. So from there, we go into some, we'll go forward a little bit here to some Russian pop songs.
Светит незнакомая звезда, снова мы оторваны от дома, снова между нами города, взлетные огни аэродрома. Здесь у нас туманы и дожди, здесь у нас холодные рассветы, здесь на неизведанном пути ждут замысловатые сюжеты. Надежда.
We have a little bit of a lag in the video here, so I'm going to go forward. And so we go through the within the cosmonaut and the Soviet space program. And now we're into the 80s with the reversal of the Challenger station. A fantasy of a reversal.
Ich bin heraus, steht zur Pieslinie.
And so we watch the inverted, I would say, or backwards explosion of the space capsule. So in a way with video, this idea of ghosts in film video, and theoretically bringing the capsule back to Earth.
Yeah, we're no on board.
And then we have some sound footage of a person of color training. And we end with actually Sun Ra's music. We'll keep going. Okay, and I will be posting this part of this video an abbreviated video on my website. So you can contact me if you'd like to see the entirety of it. The exhibitions in the past few years also have been informed by science fiction and space exploration. And this is from 2017. It's called The Wishing Machine. And this exhibition at Bruno David Gallery in St. Louis was very much informed by, again, this Russian train of thought of cosmism and different science fiction novels, including Roadside Picnic. And this is in reference to that. And there's a few courses within that, but this sort of gold orb, this wishing machine. And this is in the front window, and these three structures are slowly spinning. So we have 3 rotations, and then the mirror table on the bottom is also rotating slowly, orbiting. Inside the exhibition, you have Red Star. This is after Komarov, and it sort of erasing certain images from history. And this was based on the crashing to Earth with his craft. So a kind of memorial to him within this exhibition, Red Star. And the white peacock, which is a kind of spiritual, I would say, metaphor that I use in my work often, peacocks and raptors. So within this work, using mirrors, you see the photograph reflected back in the mirror. It's sort of a corner piece that works off of each other. Another work that had a nod to, I would say, Russian cosmos was The Visitors from 2017, again. And these are glitter and resin encrusted works on wood, and there's a long list of names. It's a kind of lineage or kind of VIP wall, the Hall of Fame to card-carrying, I would say, cosmists to some extent, or writers, artists, scientists, philosophers, authors. So it was this interesting kind of thread. I'm interested in how theory or thought, percolates and sort of transforms cultures in different ways, in different practices of the culture. So you can see there's a number of names here, and if you're interested, I can send a list of everyone who's included. And then this work was also set aside. This piece called Champagne Supernova, and I have been working with images from this Hubble telescope over the years to create a number of these, I call them glitter paintings. They are categorized as sort of the Solaris body of work, and again, images from outer space, and then they have a kind of density and sort of a lo-fi 3D appearance to them when you see them up close. Again, they're sort of emerging from the blackness or emerging from space. This is a pink Solaris. And Solaris, again, is this sort of sentient planet, this planet that feels, that has, understands perhaps our thoughts. So it's a very, to me, there's a kind of desire utopia to have something that grants your dreams and your wishes. You have to be careful, of course, what you wish for as the stories go. But this has been an ongoing concept and motif in my work. Opposite that, and these collage works also are exhibited along with sculpture. This is Tycho-Magnetic Anomaly, TMAB, which is the monolith form from Stanislav Lem's The Sentinel. And then again, you see the monolith in 2001: A Space Odyssey. And it's a signifier to a new era to come. It's sort of a beacon. It's a signal that shows up in a particular place in the universe, and it's signaling to a change. And then there's a black goat coming through this. So we have this kind of moral relativity, and this goat should not be coming through this monolith, perhaps. So it's a kind of defiant act, I would say, and the goat also is culturally in a kind of reference to sort of moral and sort of the anti of that, moral evil, and the mirror is an opposite too. So mirrors are always opposites, so reflecting things that are not. So I'm playing with these ideas within the work. I use animals quite a bit in my work, both taxidermied animals and fabricated animals. And this is another, this is actually a taxidermied bird, and Someday Never Comes. I've done a series of these, and this is a partigan, also with doves, and the more recent ones are Acknowledging Yuri Gagarin. And this is Pink Cube from 2014, in a reference to his photographs of Gagarin. And the work, again, is usually, the sculptures are accompanied with collage works. This is another glitter collage, as clear as an azure sky of deepest summer. This is also another, taken from another Kubrick film, a very sort of Shakespearean beautiful poetry, but this is from A Clockwork Orange, a kind of dystopic novel. But I use the glitter as a kind, in the work, as a kind of field that is echoing a kind of starlit sky, the infinity of the sky when we look at it. And that's something that I'm referencing through this, very kind of, sort of simple material. But when you embed it in resin and you magnify it, it takes on an appearance and a kind of, a sort of a very material presence of its own through illumination, and very much activated by light. The text, the black text, is important to me because the text it's a question if it's emerging from the field or if it's sort of receding into the field. So there's some optical, I'd say lo-fi optical illusions that happen with this kind of work that I do, that I'm interested in. Around this time too, I did a series of portraits and characters from 2001: A Space Odyssey, and of course Dave was one of those characters, the astronaut that goes off into space and is born again. And then the Shifter series, which are a photo collage and very intensive hand-cut paper. I call them weavings almost of refractive and reflective films along with the photographs. And we have collaged imagery of space exploration, again, crafts, explosions, planets. But there's this sort of celebration and sort of explosion of a kind of the past, the 20th century, both through, I would say, the West and through the Soviet space program. So it's sort of mixing this up. And I'm interested also in the times where, with space, that's where different cultures and different groups come together with the Mir. So both the American space program and the Russian space program have come together. And these collages are also looking at that too. It's like that you're having these cultures come together through space exploration. And of course we have, I think that's Leica, and that's not Leica, that's Velcro, excuse me. So there's, within the collage, it's like the more you look, the more you see. And they're very intense, and it's this manipulation and this play with images. And I take sort of great joy in creating these. And there's always a levitation. Again, this sort of nod to Tarkovsky's work. There's floating, there's levitation, there's an anti-gravity experience within these works. And different sizes. These featured a number of female cosmonauts within them as well, and ballerinas models. And another work that has to do with defiance of gravity. This is called Rising. This is a taxidermied coyote and rabbit with these crystal crystals that are falling into this pentagon shape. And again, there's a kind of visual play within it. This was at the Ca de Oro Gallery in New York City in Chelsea a few years ago. And I also print on steel, stainless steel, which is a kind of, it's a mirror that you can see yourself in, but it has a kind of industrial appearance and sort of physicality as well. And within this work, there's a few different sort of 20th century historical things. We have the broken ring from Lake Ladoga in St. Petersburg, referencing the Leningrad blockade. But you also have these cosmonautics falling out. So this is a very, I'd say, Leningrad / St. Petersburg work. But we have different crafts off, and it's kind of and then there's a lot of going into the sunset. So working off a very sort of classical Italian painting also. So there's a kind of formality within the work. And I'm going to end with a work from 2008 called Blow Away. And this work also references, I would say, the past, present, and future of humanity. And really, it kind of ends in space. And I'm working on another project right now where the last scene in the video ends on Mars. It starts on Earth, but it ends in Mars. So within this, the film crew, we went to the Great Salt Flats in Wendover, Utah. And I'm going to get to the video here. It was also then in the Minneapolis Institute of Arts. This is a gallery space. Using these reflective surfaces, the video is reflected multiple times in the mirrored surfaces. And then going into this other room, this work was very much about sort of this end of empire, this end of planet Earth, if you will. So it's a little uncomfortable to look at this right now with everything that's going on. But we have spinning horses, so there's a lot of rotation, the rotation of planets, the rotation of time. And I'm using sky charts and the mirrors on different sides. And the sky charts have they're basically, for me, alternative portraits of, in this case, the United States. So from 1774 to 2012 were these particular sky charts. And this is the astrological charts and sky charts, kind of maps of the sky, has been an ongoing motif in the work as well. And when you stand in between two mirrored charts with these event lines, you become somewhat complicit, I would say, within the history that they're showing. And the horses are spinning. And I'm going to show a little bit of the video, and that will be the last one. We have the sun setting in the owl's eyes. I use raptors often in my work, either eagles, owls, falcons. Reed Kruger was the composer on this particular project, who did the original composition music. And the use of the obelisk is, it stems from the ancient Egyptians, and looking back to space, the original meaning of the obelisk was that it was a petrified ray of the sun, and they stood for rays of the sun, a kind of manifestation, a sculpture depicting a ray of the sun. So within this work, at the end, the ultimate is that the sun has exploded. The context on the characters are their mirrored contexts. The full video is over 10 minutes, so this is an excerpt. The location where this was shot is also where the land speed record was held. It was filmed on the 3rd Speedway Raceway in Wendover, Utah. So again, this is before the race to space, but this is leading up to space exploration. So this was done with a pyrotechnic engineer. This is not STI. I'm gonna end it there. I'll leave the horse heads on for now. I think I'm probably at time. So I want to thank everyone for listening to my presentation, and I'm happy to take questions now. We can continue the conversation. Oh. Mm-hmm.